One of the greatest tools used to build tension and create emotional impact in filmmaking is silence. By stripping a scene of sound, a void is created that audience members will have to fill themselves in order to make sense of what is currently happening. Nothing is as scary as your own imagination, and as you're filling in the blanks, you become more intimately attached to the film. One film that really understands how to do this well is John Krasinski's A Quiet Place. This worldwide box office success manages to grip the audience by stripping their cinematic world of sound, and by doing so, we as viewers are taken on a roller coaster ride of fear, suspense, and imaginary horrors. By removing one of our senses from the story, horror filmmakers are able to immerse us by making us hyper-aware. We saw this not only in A Quiet Place, but as a trend in several films coming out around the same time. Some of these are Bird Box, where monsters kill everything that can see them, and The Silence, that is basically the Netflix version of A Quiet Place, but with a creepy cult subplot. To present you with content you would like to watch, streaming services today use recommendation algorithms based on traditional metadata. With this, if you are lucky, it's very likely that A Quiet Place and The Silence will be lumped together because of their similar genre and high-level plot. But it's not necessarily so that these two movies will have the same emotional impact on the viewer. In this video, we will use our emotional data analysis to compare two movies that from a traditional metadata perspective are basically the same movie, but as our data will show, are actually quite different. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video to find out how you can access this data for free so you can make your own analysis. But before we get into the video, as this is an in-depth movie review, make sure you have seen the two movies first because there might be spoilers. Set in a post-apocalyptic world, A Quiet Place is a horror story about a family trying to survive the pervasive threat of extraterrestrial creatures with hypersensitive hearing, attacking anything that makes a loud enough sound. Forced to live as silently as possible, this family has been able to survive for so long because their oldest daughter is deaf, and they are able to communicate through sign language. Throughout the story, this family suffers great loss and isolation, as well as the birth of a child, all while doing their best to stay silent. Now, the plot of The Silence doesn't seem to be much different. In this movie, a family is also trying to survive the threat of bloodthirsty creatures ready to snatch them as they make noise. The oldest daughter is also deaf. The major difference between these two stories seems to be the setting. When we meet the family in A Quiet Place, it's clear from the get-go that they have been living their isolated and monster-wary lives for quite some time and have grown accustomed to a new lifestyle. In The Silence, we get to follow the family as they try to deal with this newfound threat. Through machine learning trained on human input, we are able to predict people's reactions to video content. Our system outputs a variety of variables, such as how stressful a scene is or whether it evokes positive or negative emotions, and we can use this information to determine the emotional impact of a scene. When we look at the emotional data comparison of The Silence and A Quiet Place, we can see that there are things that are similar, but there are some main key differences. The first major difference is seen in the build-up of these two movies. We can spot the difference by looking closely at the stress levels displayed in our data of A Quiet Place and The Silence. The difference between these two films is that A Quiet Place has a clear build-up. The first half of the film is actually quite calm. Slowly, there is a buildup of tension and stress that eventually culminates in the second half of the movie. The Silence, on the other hand, has a pretty even distribution of high stress levels throughout the duration of the story, except for a calmer dip at the end. By slowly building up the tension, we are given more time to calmly get to know our characters, and because of this, we care more what happens to them when shit hits the fan. Secondly, the data from A Quiet Place also showcase a bigger variation in their positive and negative feelings, stress levels, as well as how in control you feel during certain scenes. Naturally, a lot of these variations are caused by the sound design. So why is this important? Well, horror films have long used their sound design to elicit fear in their viewers. As humans, we are used to there always being sound around us. Even in a silent room, there is some kind of ambiance, so the idea of no sound is scary. But not surprisingly, it's the healthy balance between both silence and loudness that enables horror movies to create tension and suspense. The silence makes sound even more surprising and loud, and the loudness makes us wonder what horrifying things hide in the silence. There is a scene in A Quiet Place where the father of the family, Lee, and his son Marcus are returning from a trip to get food. While walking home, they encounter an old man who has just lost someone close to him. There is a moment of tension-filled silence as the father and his son lock eyes with the old man before them. While completely silent, Lee's eyes still seem to say, "Don't do it," and because of this pleading moment of silence when the man finally screams, it is ear-piercing. You feel the shock all throughout your body. By creating a story with more variation, viewers do not necessarily know what to expect. They are holding their breath, waiting for the next moment. The third way these films differ is through the actual use of silence. We've already established that silence juxtaposed with loudness is a major contributor to both immersion and the creation of tension. So why does A Quiet Place do better than the silence here? A Quiet Place is just simply more silent. In fact, the sound designers have managed to create something very unusual. Movie silences are often filled with music, sound effects, and ambience, but 3 times in the movie, noticeable in our analysis at these 3 data points, the sound designers deprive us of sound entirely. It is in these moments that we truly get to experience the isolated feelings of the daughter Reagan. We feel her despair of not being able to hear the creatures that haunt them, and somehow these silences become the most intimate moments of the film. Thus, the silence is used in such a way that makes us feel for the main characters of the story. Would you like to take a look at the data we used for this analysis? If you follow the link in the description box below, you can access it for free. While doing so, if there happens to be another movie that you want to check out, you can request it and we might be able to provide it. Also, if you saw these 2 movies, what part did you think left an emotional impact? Don't forget to join us for our next video. See you then.